So today on Things That I Do in My Garage to this CRF 450RL, we're going to pick up where Honda left off. And apologies in advance, I do get a little salty in this one. Well, you find me in voiceover. The one night this week I have time to work on the bike was apparently the same night my neighbor had to put his circular saw to the ultimate test. So I guess that's what you get when you share walls with your neighbors. But that's alright, no need to bore you with the details. I started with building a small mount out of aluminum bar, mounting it to the backside of the stock dashboard. The mini gauge was actually pretty easy to install. The gauge plugs directly into the diagnostic port behind the seat and fed up to the headlight through an extension cable. That spare pin from the speedo calibrator is added in at the front end of the extension cable before plugging into the gauge itself. Besides the speedo calibrator pin, the mini gauge is completely plug and play. But now that the noise has gone away, let's get back to some actual video testing the gauge for the first time. Well, it's finally quiet around here, but we got the gauge in. Let's turn it on and see. Right off the bat, engine's running, but the speed says I'm going 28 miles an hour. I'm literally just walking it. I think I figured out the speed. It shows 3 digits, so it's showing right now that I'm going 173, 200. I think it's actually showing tenths of a mile an hour, so it's actually 2 digits, and then the last digit is the fraction, because that's really close to the speed there. That's really confusing, because right now it's showing I'm going 430 miles an hour. I don't think that's possible. We're going to learn the gear position indicator, or GPI. So you have to have a long stretch of road in order to do this. So I've enabled it, so it says right here, GPI learning ready. Alright, I'm having the worst luck filming this thing. I mean, first it's too loud when I actually put the bracket together, and then when I go out to ride it for the first time, it's so dark, and the screen is so bright that it doesn't even show up. I mean, it's even on the lowest setting right now because it's obscenely bright. In riding this around, I initially thought that the mile an hour was just showing, without a decimal point, because it was basically 10 times higher than what I was actually showing, or a little bit more than that. But when I checked the total odometer, because I had reset it, and compared it to the total odometer on the bike, it was showing 1,000 miles difference. So it was actually showing that I was going 100, 200, 300 miles an hour. Obviously, I do have to still calibrate this, even though it's plugged into the speedo corrector. I thought because it plugs into the speedo corrector, it would just pull that data, but I guess I'm wrong. There's a divider with this one that I have to put in to make sure that it's 100%. So I figured I'd just ride it around, resetting both of these, and once I have a total mileage difference there, after having ridden it around a lot, I can just divide it, and that's gonna be my dividing value for this mini gauge. So we're gonna have to do that first, then we're gonna have to reset the gear indicator, because since I was messing with this and reset a few things on the speedo, the gear indicator is gone now. I need to redo it anyway, because when I did that run, I think I pretty much showed the exact same RPM and speed with 4th and 5th gear. I don't think I did that right, and so when the gears were showing, it basically never showed me 5th gear. It just always assumed I was in 4th until I clicked all the way up into 6th. So that has to be done anyway, but we got to do this in order of operations, so it looks like the first thing we got to do is calibrate this speed here, and then we can redo the gear indicator run and get a better reading with 5th gear at least. So we've ridden for just a little bit, only 34.5 miles. That's what the trip odometer on the actual bike says, but I don't know if it's easy to see here. This is as close as I can get to it with it still sort of being in focus, but it's 353.13 on the odometer with the mini gauge, so that's a big difference, obviously, more than 10. I divided basically this number by 34.5, which is what on the odometer is, and that magic number is 10.235 or 10.236, because I believe we can go up to 3 digits. So hopefully this will give you a little bit of the kind of the user interface here. So they give you this little magnet in a baggie, and you just kind of set it right on the top here, and then it's going to go into menu mode, and then the longer you hold it, the arrow on the side kind of goes past whatever you want, and then when you want to select one of those, in this case I want to select speed settings, which I've already passed. But then once the arrow's back on it, I can lift off. It'll say wait for magnet. I'll put it back, and now we're in the speed source, or the speed settings. Now let's go to speed calibrate. multiply or divide. In this case, it's way over, so we have to divide it. And you can see there the current value and the new value, which is what I'm going to put in. So the current value is 0, so it's basically not doing anything to it whatsoever, but I need to put in 10.236 and 6. Cool. So now it's going to reset. Final step, just to make sure. So we're going to run this again, but I'm going to reset the odometer basically to put back to 0. You can see there the odometer is now at 0. And then I'll reset the trip here now that we have that divider in there, and we should be 100%, but we'll write it around again, basically do the exact same thing that we did previously, and these two numbers should be identical now. Well, looks like we got the speedo corrected, so it's actually showing what it's supposed to. On to the next step, which is gear position indicator, or GPI. Alright, so we're at the start of our long stretch. This is the last light for a couple miles, so we should be good. Time to put this in GPI learning mode. Now, I'm not going to try to get this to show up on the camera, but I'll take the liberty of putting some quality, high-resolution images up on the screen, so that way you can see exactly what's going on as I go through it. So basically what we're going to do is just kind of go through all the gears slowly, but, you know, consistently with a reasonable RPM for each, and giving the system enough time to kind of learn what the speed and RPM is in relation to the gear until we get all the way up to 6th gear. Let's get rolling. Looks like there's no cars coming, so that's good. We'll click down. I should put my blinker on. Learning gear 1. Shift to next gear. Learning gear 2, learning gear 3, learning gear 4. This is a little tricky in that you have to have a long stretch and then you have to kind of like look ahead, but at the same time watch what the gauge is showing. We're up to gear 5 now. And finally gear 6, just at the top of the hill. And it did it. Let's turn around here and head back, and we'll see if we did it. It's showing no gear now, but we don't have any speed or RPM to go off of, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here's the real test. Let's see if it shows 5. Yes, we show 5. And 6. I'm curious though, what if I stay in 3rd gear at this stop? Will it assume I'm in 3rd? Yep, it went down to 2nd for a quick second there. Let's try something else here. Let's go down to 2nd. Okay, so it saw 2nd, but now let's ring it out. Yep. And up to 4th. Nice. Well, we've thrown a couple of different speeds and RPMs at it, and so far it's showing what it's supposed to be showing. So with that, we're good to go. Well, now that everything's finally calibrated and set up on the gauge, we can actually use it for what it is and just providing us good data. And it also gives me an opportunity now to rant, because honestly, I wish I did not have to buy this. Honda, calling you out. Give us a better dashboard, for real. I mean, this thing literally only shows you miles an hour, trip odometer, clock, and that's it. I get it, maybe you're pulling this from the old 450X or whatever, you know, when you were initially putting this together, saving some money, but how hard would it have been to adapt the 300L or Grom dashboard to this, which has all of those things? It has the RPM, it has the gear position indicator, all the data's there. This gauge is literally just pulling from an OEM plug under the seat. So that data is readily available from the ECU. So why not give us a dashboard from the factory that shows us that? Oh, that was a Polestar. First time I've seen a Polestar in the wild. Might have come off a little too salty in this video, especially with that last rant, but as much as I am a Honda fanboy, there are a few things that I don't like with some Hondas, and with this bike in particular, and that happens to be one of them. So at least we've got it resolved, and I promise I'll be cheerier in the next one.